Hello everyone and welcome to Humble Beginnings Ministries. I'm your host, Pastor Stephen Woods, and today I want to react to a video by Bishop Joel Tudman leaving the Potter's House. And in this reaction video, we're going to talk and discuss about some things that I believe are important for today's church. So let's go in now as Dr. Joel Tudman makes an announcement to his church.
That Pastor Joel and Latasha Tudman will be joining me as my assistant senior pastors. Let's go. Let's go, Faith Center. Let's go. Wow. This is a younger couple who will join Carol and I, as well as all of you, to take this church to the next level. Somebody.
So here it is. This pastor here announces to the church, Bishop Henry Fernandez announces to the church that Dr. Joel Tudman is the new assistant pastor of the Faith Center Church in Florida. And the reason why it's important that I wanted to react to this video is because a lot of churches do not do this. A lot of churches make the mistake that the pastor, the senior pastor, leads the church until he either dies or he's no longer physically capable and able to lead the church. And the church shouldn't be vulnerable to that kind of leadership. And the reason being is because when it comes down to the church, we must understand that there should be somebody that's next in line. There should be somebody that the church is getting acclimated to, somebody that is a trusted, who's been tried and tested and given responsibility to see whether or not they can truly lead the church according to the will of God, according to the Word of God. And so I commend this pastor, I commend Bishop Henry Fernandez for doing this, because a lot of churches don't do this, and they don't have legacy. After the senior pastor dies, a lot of times that pastor, when he leaves, that whole church folds, and all that ministry and everything that it ever accomplished ceases with that pastor. Not only is that selfish, but it gives a bad reputation to how we steward in the house of God, how we steward the work of God. The work of God should go from generation to generation. It should go on after us. We see it in the early church in 1st and 2nd Timothy. We see it in Titus, where Paul's ordaining elders and he's planning churches and all these things, but the churches are given the mandate as Paul begins to tell Timothy, listen, I've run the race, I finished my course, and now, Timothy, I'm about to pour out my life as a drink offering. You are now to carry on. Don't let anyone despise your youth. Do the work of an evangelist, making full proof of your ministry. All these things the Apostle Paul does, and so I commend this ministry. I don't recommend it completely. I don't know its doctrine. The fact that this pastor has come from the Potter's House, it raises questions. But however, you can't take one man's reputation and say that all pastors from that ministry are the same way. So again, kudos to Pastor Henry Fernandez regarding the way that he's going about this. Let's continue on. Now he's believing that this couple is going to help take this church to the next level. Let's continue on.
Shout, we're going to the next level. Be seated. For the next 10 years, or over the last 10 years, I've shared with the church executive board the importance of making plans to train the younger generation to take over from us so that the church can continue beyond us.
That is such a blessing. Thank you, Bishop, for saying this. A lot of churches don't think this way. They don't. And you know what happens? There's either infighting with the deacon board, infighting with the church. They want their cousin, they want their auntie, they want their uncle to take over the church, and the church ends up devastated. Great move, Bishop. Great move. I commend you on this. Why? Because you know what? A lot of churches don't do this. You don't see a lot of these big name ministries doing any of this. I mean, here we see it, right? But you don't see the next pastors in a lot of churches, or you don't have any glimpse of who they are, because it's all secret, and it should never be that way.
Over the last 18 months, Joel and Latasha have been coming and speaking here and fellowshipping with us. They are truly, listen to me carefully, they're truly great and wonderful people. And without a doubt in my mind, I know I have made the right decision.
Notice this. For 18 months, he spent time with this couple. Again, this is commendable. This means that he didn't make some flippant decision to just put these people in this place. This tells me for 18 months, he sat with them, he spoke with them, they had time to minister to the church, they were standing before the church, they got a chance to meet his wife, and they got a chance to see him preach the gospel. And what a blessing that is, and you don't see that a lot of times in this day and time. You don't see it. You do not see that happening.
I have made the right decision.
With your failures. When you fail, don't cuss. Well, if you're not saved, you can cuss all you want. Don't cuss. Cuss. Okay? But if you say, don't cuss and then quit. Don't cuss and quit. Okay? Here's what you need to do. Collect information. You cannot have serious success without collecting the information from what failed. Okay? One of the biggest things to do is go through something that doesn't work and you don't learn why.
And this is very applicable to the current, I want to say, transdemic. And when I say transdemic, I'm talking about when one leader transitions either to glory or ceases to remain the senior pastor. Now there's nobody who's able to continually take the ministry and to continue it. I like how Bishop Fernandez decides to appoint Dr. Tudman. It just shows, as it says in the video, his strategic approach to leadership succession, highlighting the importance of having a succession plan in place. A lot of pastors don't, but throughout the Bible we see God's succession plan from Moses to Joshua, right? We see it from Paul to Timothy. Well, we don't see it in a lot of churches today. And that is terrible that we don't see that. Let's continue on. And this is just a clip from one of the sermons that Bishop Tudman began to preach.
Why didn't it work? Write this down. Finding out why something didn't work is just as important as finding out how it worked. You need the information. You need the data. This is how you fail forward. This is how you fail responsibly. Because if you do that, what's going to happen? Serious success, which is what I just told you, should be scalable. And if you are scaling it because you've seen all the problems that come up.
So in the video, it's asking the question that, in the reality that this move sparked discussions about potential successors at the Potter's house, particularly whether Sarah Jakes Roberts may be the successor of the Potter's house, and truthfully, she shouldn't. And for no other reason than it's not biblical for her to do so. But secondly, that she's not qualified to do so. There should be a succession plan in place for the ministry to move forward, and hopefully the next leader will take it to a biblical level. because Bishop T.D. Jakes is borderline motivational speaker, and there's so many YouTubers out there that are beginning to discuss Bishop Jakes, and there's one particular YouTuber who's trying to just defend the fact that when he stood up at one point and corrected Bishop Jakes in a reaction video, now he's so apologetic about, oh, touch not God's anointed and all that foolery that we see, that many pastors take that verse out of context, and it just becomes so disheartening to see. But let's listen in as he begins to go further.
Around it. You're able to prepare other people. This is what you need to do. And they're not just saying that you shouldn't do it. They're able to tell you why. Be responsible.
Again, be responsible. And that's what it's about. And a lot of leaders are not being responsible when it comes down to having pastors that are going to go on from them, pastors who are going to take on the ministry. And it gives the congregation the opportunity to get to know them, to be familiar with them, to know those who labor among you. And so the whole point of this reaction video is to say to all the pastors out there that you've been pastoring for a long time and you don't have a succession plan, you should have one in place, right? You should have you should be discussing it with the elders and discussing it with the church. There should be somebody who can take the ministry on from this point until the next. And so we should be using wisdom. We should be prayerful, asking God to lead us and guide us and to send those who are qualified in character, qualified in the ability to teach and to preach the Word of God, qualified to shepherd, and not only that, but called by God. If they are called by God, they will fulfill all those other requirements of biblical leadership. And if you don't know God's requirements, then I would encourage you, read 1 Timothy and begin to study it and begin to mull over it. Read the letters of Paul to the apostle, how God had given him the blueprint of how he wanted the church structured. It wasn't God's opinions about how things should be done. It was God's commands of how things should be done. And we need to go back to biblical faithfulness as men of God and leading faithfully, having faithful homes, faithful families, being a beacon light in a community, light in the midst of darkness. I am your host, Pastor Stephen Woods. I thank you for tuning in to Humble Beginnings Ministries, where loving God means loving His people. God bless you and have a wonderful day and be blessed.